Welcome to the channel, where we unravel the raw, unfiltered truths of betrayal. I'm Nathan, a 40-year-old graphic designer from Portland, and this is my story, a tale of how my wife, Elise, turned our marriage into a game of control, stripping me of my identity with every calculated move. It's the fall of 2023, and I'm here to share how I broke free, not with loud vengeance, but with a quiet justice that left her world in pieces. If you've ever felt diminished by someone you loved, stay with me. This one's for you. The moment that broke me came on a foggy September evening in our modern condo, perched on a hill overlooking the Willamette River. I'd spent the day finalizing a branding project for a local nonprofit, a gig I'd taken on because it aligned with my values, even if it didn't pay much. Elise, a corporate lawyer, had invited her firm's partners over for a dinner party. The condo was impeccable, candles flickering, the air rich with the scent of garlic and thyme from the braised short ribs I'd cooked, jazz piano drifting softly from the speakers. I'd orchestrated every detail, not out of joy, but because Elise demanded perfection. It was my unspoken role in her carefully curated life. She was magnetic that night, her laughter cutting through the room as she held court with her colleagues. I was clearing plates when I asked, my voice light, "Elise, could you grab the dessert wine from the kitchen?" Her fork clinked against her plate. She turned to me, her green eyes sharp, and said, "Nathan, you don't make requests in front of my partners. You wait." The room stilled. Her colleagues exchanged glances, their polite smiles faltering. My throat tightened, a flush creeping up my neck. I forced a laugh, mumbling, "My mistake." But inside, I felt like I'd been struck. Later, after the guests left, the condo silent except for the hum of the dishwasher, I confronted her. "Elise, that was humiliating. Why would you say that?" She was wiping down the marble counter, her movements precise, her voice icy. "If you can't handle a little discipline, maybe you don't belong in my world. You either follow my rules, or you'll regret it." Her words landed like a stone, the fog outside pressing against the windows, mirroring the heaviness in my chest. This wasn't a correction, it was a decree. She didn't want a husband. She wanted a subordinate, and I'd been complying for years, losing myself in the process. That night, sleep evaded me. I sat on the balcony, the city lights blurred by the mist, the damp air carrying the scent of wet pavement and pine. The chill bit into my skin, but I didn't care. I needed to feel something real. I thought about the man I used to be before Elise. Back in 2014, I was the guy who'd spend weekends at art fairs, my sketchpad filled with vibrant designs, dreaming of launching my own studio. I'd ride my bike along the riverfront, the wind in my hair, feeling alive. Elise despised that bike. "It's reckless," she'd said. "You're not a teenager." So I sold it, swapped my sneakers for leather shoes, and buried my dreams because I thought love meant compromise. I remembered the first time I turned down a freelance gig because Elise insisted I attend her firm's charity auction instead. It was 2017, and the gig could have landed me a contract with a major gallery. I'd pleaded with her. "This could be my break, Elise." She'd rolled her eyes, her voice sharp. "My event is more important, Nathan. You'll survive." I stayed up all night to meet the gallery's deadline, my hands shaking from exhaustion, the glow of my laptop burning my eyes. The screen's harsh light cast shadows on the walls of our old apartment, a tiny space we'd shared before moving to the condo. I'd been so proud of that project, a series of posters for an indie art festival, each design bursting with color and life. But when I told her I'd lost the contract, she shrugged, sipping her coffee, the steam rising like a barrier between us. "You'll find another. Don't embarrass me." I'd nodded, swallowing my anger, because I didn't want to argue. But now I saw it clearly, the first fracture in my spirit. Then there was the time I broke down after my brother's accident in 2020. He'd been in a car crash, and I'd sat by his hospital bed, watching the machines beep, my heart in knots. The antiseptic smell of the hospital clung to my clothes, and the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, a relentless drone that matched the ache in my chest. When I got home, I collapsed on the couch, tears streaming down my face, needing Elise's comfort. She stood at the kitchen island, slicing an apple, her knife's rhythm steady, the crisp sound echoing in the silence. "Crying won't help him, Nathan," she said, her tone flat. "Get a grip." I choked back my sobs, shame burning in my chest, because she'd made me feel weak. I didn't cry again after that, not even at his funeral. Elise had been there, her hand on mine, but it felt like a clamp, not a lifeline. I'd stood by his grave, the rain soaking through my coat, my brother's laughter echoing in my mind. How we'd raced bikes as kids, the summer sun warm on our backs. Elise had pulled me away, whispering, "Don't make a scene." I'd obeyed, but the grief stayed, buried deep where she couldn't touch it. Each memory was a jagged edge, slicing deeper as I sat there in the dark. I ran my fingers along the balcony's iron railing, the cold metal grounding me as my mind churned. How had I let this happen? I thought about the late nights I'd spent designing in secret, hiding my work in a locked folder because Elise mocked my little projects. I remembered her scoffing when I suggested starting my own studio. "You're not ready, Nathan. Stick to what's safe." I'd believed her because I loved her, but love shouldn't feel like a prison. I thought of the small victories I'd let slip away, like the time I'd won a local design award in 2018, a moment of pride I'd wanted to celebrate. Elise had dismissed it, saying, "It's just a local thing. Don't let it go to your head." I'd smiled, but inside, I'd felt the sting. Another piece of myself chipped away. Beneath the hurt, a flicker of clarity emerged. Not anger, but resolve. I wasn't her partner anymore. I was her creation, shaped to fit her image of success. Her rules were chains and I was done wearing them. But escaping wouldn't be impulsive. I needed a strategy as meticulous as her control. I went inside, the fog still clinging to the windows, and poured myself a glass of bourbon. The amber liquid caught the dim light, and the burn in my throat mirrored the fire in my chest. I wasn't just going to leave. I was going to dismantle the life she'd built on my submission. The next morning, I began, my actions deliberate, like I was designing a campaign for my freedom. I went through our shared laptop, something Elise never checked because she assumed I was too creative for tech. Her overconfidence was my edge. I found her emails to a friend, cold and cutting. "Nathan's talented, but he needs a firm hand to keep him in line." My stomach twisted, a sour taste in my mouth, but I saved every message, my fingers steady as I archived each one. I set up a new cloud account, changed my email passwords, enabled two-factor authentication. Elise controlled our finances, always saying I was too disorganized to manage money. But I wasn't. I just let her think so, because fighting her felt like running into a brick wall. I dug into our bank statements, my heart racing as I saw the patterns. Her lavish spending on client dinners and designer clothes, while my requests for a new tablet to improve my designs were always too expensive. I printed those statements, my hands shaking, knowing they'd be another weapon in my arsenal. I called my old friend, Jake, a photographer I'd collaborated with back in 2016. Elise had pushed me to distance myself from him, calling him a distraction, because he didn't fit her elite circle. I hadn't spoken to him in years, and my heart pounded as I dialed his number, the phone slick in my palm. When he answered, his voice was warm, like a memory of better days. I told him everything, her control, her threats, the way I felt like a ghost in my own life. My voice broke as I said, "I don't know who I am anymore, Jake." He listened, his silence steadying me. "You don't deserve this, Nathan," he said finally. "I've got a spare room in Eugene if you need it." That offer was a beacon in the fog. I thanked him, my throat tight, and hung up, a spark of hope igniting in my chest. I sat in my car after the call, the rain tapping on the windshield, and let myself feel the weight of his words. For the first time in years, I felt seen. Not as Elise's project, but as Nathan, the artist, the friend, the man I'd forgotten how to be. For weeks, I played the part, my every action a performance in her tightly scripted play. I poured her coffee each morning, the steam curling between us like a barrier, and nodded at her critiques of my designs, her words sharp as ever. This isn't sleek enough, Nathan. You need to think more corporate. I smiled when she boasted about our achievements to her colleagues at networking events, her hand on my arm like I was a prop. But inside, I was constructing my escape piece by piece. I opened a new savings account at a credit union near the waterfront, where the air always smelled of river and freedom. I transferred small amounts, $60 one day, $110 the next, numbers too small for her to notice, but enough to build a foundation. I watched the balance grow, each deposit a silent rebellion, a step toward the life I'd lost. I'd sit at the waterfront after each transfer, sketching the boats on the river. The pencils scratch a reminder of the creativity I'd buried. Those moments were my sanctuary, a glimpse of the freedom I was fighting for. I documented everything, my hands steady but my pulse racing. I saved her texts ordering me to skip a gallery opening because it wasn't worth my time. Her words like a slap. You don't need those artsy types, Nathan. I'm enough. I kept her voicemails, her voice berating me for forgetting to schedule her car service, her tone dripping with contempt. You can't even handle the basics, can you? I recorded her one night, my phone hidden in my pocket as we argued in the dining room. She'd been drinking, her words slurring but piercing. You'd be nothing without me, Nathan. Don't forget who keeps this life together. I listened to the recording later, parked in a lot near the river, the dashboard lights casting shadows on my face. Her voice made my skin crawl, but it was evidence of the cage I'd been locked in. I played it over and over, each word fueling my determination, until I could recite her venom by heart. I dug deeper, my resolve hardening with every discovery. I found a folder on her laptop labeled Work Notes, but inside were messages to her assistant, detailing how she'd manage me during social events. Make sure Nathan doesn't speak out of turn, she'd written. He needs to look the part. My jaw clenched as I read those words, the screen's blue light harsh against my eyes. I saved it all, my fingers trembling not from fear, but from a growing fire. I started tracking our joint expenses, noticing how she'd used my income for her luxury purchases, designer shoes, spa retreats, while dismissing my requests for new design software as unnecessary. Each finding was a brick in the wall I was building between us, a wall she couldn't see. I began to notice her patterns more acutely, how she'd leave her phone unlocked on the counter, assuming I'd never dare touch it. I did, late at night, scrolling through her calendar, finding appointments with her mentor that always coincided with my busiest workdays, ensuring I'd be too distracted to question her. I met with a lawyer in a small office near the Pearl District, recommended by a coworker I trusted. Her name was Lauren, a sharp-eyed woman with a desk cluttered with legal pads. I showed her the evidence, emails, texts, recordings, my hands trembling as I laid it all out. She leaned back, her pen tapping rhythmically, her eyes scanning Elisa's messages. This isn't just control, she said, her voice firm. It's emotional coercion. We can use this. Hearing those words felt like a weight lifting, but also a knife to the gut. Coercion. I'd been living with it for years, blind to its name. We mapped out the divorce, every detail precise, my evidence as a shield. Lauren's confidence steadied me, but as I left her office, the reality crashed over me. I was dismantling my life, our life. A part of me still loved Elise, or at least the version of her I'd met a decade ago, when her smile felt like sunlight. But that version was a mirage, and I couldn't live in a lie anymore. I stopped at a cafe on my way home, the smell of espresso grounding me as I sketched in a notebook, my hands shaky but sure. I drew a logo for a studio I'd never dared to start, the lines bold and free, a promise to myself. At home, I started pulling away, subtle but deliberate, like a shadow slipping from the light. I stopped asking for her input on my designs, my work piling up in a locked folder she never checked. When she snapped at me for not picking up her dry cleaning, her voice slicing through the morning quiet, I said, "You know where the cleaners are." My tone was even, but inside, my heart thundered, waiting for her reaction. Her eyes flashed with confusion, then irritation, but she didn't push. For the first time, I saw her control falter, like a crack in a glass about to shatter. I lay awake that night, the city lights filtering through the blinds, Elisa's breathing steady beside me. I stared at the ceiling, my mind racing. What if she suspected something? What if she fought back harder? But then I thought of Jake's voice, of the designs waiting for me, of the man I could be again. I wasn't just leaving her, I was saving myself. I took a moment to reflect, wondering how many others have felt trapped like this. Have you ever had to hide your true self to keep the peace in a relationship? Share your experiences in the comments. I'd love to hear your stories and know we're not alone in these struggles. The breaking point came at another dinner party, this time in October, at a chic venue in the Alberta Arts District. The space was alive with string lights, the air crisp with the scent of cedar and cider. Elise was in her element, her laughter ringing out as she networked with her firm's partners. I was there, playing the dutiful husband, but I felt like a phantom. When she started a story about how she'd shaped me to fit her world, her tone dripping with condescension, I didn't laugh. I looked at her, my voice steady, and said, I thought marriage was about building a life together, not tearing someone apart. The room froze, the clink of glasses fading. Elisa's smile faltered, her hand tightening on her glass for a split second before she laughed it off, steering the conversation elsewhere. But I saw the flicker of fear in her eyes. Later, in our condo, she unleashed. What the hell was that, Nathan? You made me look like a fool. Her voice was a lash, but I didn't flinch. No, Elise, you've been making me feel like one for years. I'm done. Her face twisted shock, then fury, then a desperate edge I'd never seen. You don't get to walk away. You'll have nothing, no money, no home, no me. I packed a bag while she ranted, my movements calm. Laptop, clothes, a sketch pad I hadn't touched in years. You're throwing everything away, she said, her voice cracking. I didn't answer. I walked out, the elevator's hum drowning out her shouts, the fog-soaked streets below welcoming me like an old friend. I drove to Jake's, the city lights fading in my rearview. I didn't feel victorious, just free, like I'd finally exhaled after holding my breath for years. Elise didn't see the storm coming, but it hit hard. I'd canceled the credit cards tied to my name, the ones she used for her luxury handbags and spa days. Her orders started failing. First a pair of heels, then her monthly skincare subscription. She texted me, her tone sharp. This is pathetic, Nathan. Fix it now. I didn't reply. My lawyer served her papers, the evidence laid out like a design brief. Emotional coercion, financial manipulation, abuse. She tried to spin it, telling her partners I'd lost my way. But the cracks were showing. Her colleagues whispered at the firm. Why couldn't she afford her usual client dinners? Why was she suddenly so on edge? The final blow was her car. A black Mercedes she'd insisted we lease because it fit her image. I'd co-signed, but I notified the dealer of our divorce and removed my name. She couldn't cover the payments alone. Jake texted me a photo of the Mercedes back on the lot, its sleek lines gleaming under showroom lights, ready for someone else. I didn't smile. I just felt done. Elisa's last message came 2 months later. A wall of text at 2 a.m. I didn't mean to push you so hard. I thought I was helping you grow. We can fix this, Nathan. Come back. I read it under the glow of my phone, the Eugene skyline quiet outside Jake's window. I waited a day, then replied, You wanted a puppet, not a partner. I'm done being your design. It's January 2024 now, and I'm still with Jake, saving for a small loft near the Pearl District. I've started designing again, my pen's scratching late into the night, creating branding that feels alive. I'm not whole yet. Some nights, I dream of Elisa's smile from our early days, back when we'd share cheap wine and laugh until dawn. But then I remember her voice, her rules, and I know I chose right. Freedom isn't loud. It's the quiet sound of fog on a window, the scratch of a pen, the weight of a life that's finally mine. If you've ever had to redesign your life after someone tried to erase you, I want to hear about it. Drop your story in the comments, and let's inspire each other to keep creating. Subscribe, share, and join me for more stories of breaking free. Because sometimes, the best design is the one you craft for yourself.